Good morning. So we continue through Mark Gospel. We are going still in chapter 14. I believe it's the longest of all the chapters. And we are currently at verse 26. So let's continue. When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. And Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Even though all become deserters, I will not." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this day, this very night, before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." But he said vehemently, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And all of them said the same. Okay, so this is once again Jesus talking about the forthcoming passion that he's going to go through. He is referred to himself earlier on. I think it was in chapter 2 or 3. He refers to himself as the shepherd, and he is now once again referring to himself as the shepherd. He's saying that he will be struck down, and that the sheep will scatter. The sheep being his followers, his apostles. Now, of course, Peter says that's never going to happen. I'm completely loyal to you. There's no way that I'm going to let you down in that way. But of course, Jesus says, "I'm afraid not, Peter. You're going to mess up like you often do." He says, "You're going to deny me 3 times." Once again, we get that number 3 coming up. It comes up so often. And I wonder what the significance of it is here. Is it possibly linked to the Trinity? That Peter denies Jesus 3 times and there are 3 persons of the Trinity? I don't know. It's interesting, though, that it's 3 times. Then, of course, we've got 3 days that Jesus will have been crucified, and then on the third day he's raises up. We also have 3 being the amount of times that Jesus has predicted or prophesied what's going to happen to him. So we see 3 come up a lot, and here it is coming up once more. Then Peter says, "Even if I must die with you, I will not deny you." Well, you already know from our studies that Peter does in the end die. He does end up dying for his faith. He is crucified upside down in Rome. However, he did deny Jesus, and I wonder if there's any coincidence there where actually all of the apostles who fled ended up becoming martyrs, and only John, who was actually present, is the only one who actually got to die a natural death. Is that coincidence or is it not? I'm not sure. I'll let you decide for yourself. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took with him Peter and James and John, and began to be distressed and agitated. And he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed that, if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. He said, "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I want, but what you want." He came and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not keep awake 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And once more he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to say to him. He came a third time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? Enough, the hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." Okay, so he has asked Peter, James, and John to do one thing. They had one job, and that was to stay awake. Unfortunately, they do not manage to do so, as we learn in the next part of this little passage. But at the end of verse 36, he says, "Not what I want, but what you want." If you remember how Jesus taught us to pray in the Gospel of Matthew, in that Sermon on the Mount, I think it's somewhere around Matthew 5, Matthew 6, Jesus has the Our Father, and he says, "Thy will be done." And that's how he's praying right here in Gethsemane. He's saying, "Thy will be done." Of course, Jesus doesn't want to go through all of this pain, but ultimately he recognizes that it's God's plan that's most important. And so he says, "Thy will, what you want, not what I want." It's a really hard prayer to pray. At least it's hard to pray it and mean it. And so he's praying. They end up sleeping. He's very disappointed. He goes and sees them. He gives them a hard time. He asks them to stay awake. Once again, they fall asleep. This happens 3 times. Once again, we get that 3 times. There's lots of numbers that come up again and again in the Bible. 3, 7, 12, 40 seem to come up the most often. But 3 times is really, really being pushed home in the Gospel of Mark. So that's curious to me. Not only does Peter let Jesus down in terms of not being awake for 3 times, but as we already know, it has been prophesied that he's going to let Jesus down by denying him 3 times as well. All right, well, that's all we're going to be talking about for this one. So I hope you're doing really well, and I shall see you when I do. Bye now.